On any given day, vets and vet nurses are confronted with ethical dilemmas the average pet owner knows nothing about. It's something veterinarian and journalist Dr Anne Fawcett thought about a lot, prompting her and a co-author to come up with a compelling new book on the topic, Veterinary Ethics, Navigating Tough Cases. Anne's book is now hot off the presses, and we're delighted VETtalk Online was given the honour of carrying out the very first review. Co-host Brian Pickering catching up with Dr Anne during a rare break.
Hello.
Hey Anne, first of all, congratulations on receiving the AVA President's Award, pretty prestigious, for outstanding contribution to vet science and practice in Australia.
I know, that's pretty amazing.
What was your reaction when they told you?
I actually rang them and said, I'm presenting the award, is there a mistake? Because I'm not that important enough to present it. I didn't even think I was receiving it. I honestly was bowled over because the people that were in that ceremony getting awards were some pretty phenomenal people. So I was surprised that I was included in that group. I really was surprised.
Well, it was a lovely surprise, and I saw the tweet from the AVA, and I thought, hey, I've got to share that and say something nice. And
it was lovely.
Said something nice back to me,
yeah.
which was terrific. So
yes, it was a Twitter storm.
Okay, so let's talk about your new book, Veterinary Ethics, Navigating Tough Cases. It's a weighty tome.
Yes.
I actually weighed it. It's what?
It's 1.49 kilograms.
Oh, I was going to say 1.5, so there you go. What prompted you to tackle such a tough topic?
So my co-author Siobhan Mullen is was the editor of a column called Everyday Ethics in Practice, which is in the British. It's published by the British Veterinary Association, and it's a very popular column. People submit real-world ethical dilemmas, and then experts answer them. And she was offered an opportunity to write the book, and I'd written a few columns for her, so she said, "I'd like you to write it with me." So we teamed up, and we actually hadn't met before. So. She's in the UK, I'm in Australia, we'd never met in person. And
you still haven't met?
No, we have now.
Oh, you have now,
I went over and visited her.
Ah, right.
I was the one, even though I don't like flying.
That's when you were ignoring all our texts. So look, who do you think will enjoy reading it? And should they start at the beginning?
No, they don't have to. So this is a book that's made, designed so that you can flick through it. The introductory chapters give a really good broad overview of veterinary ethics and ethical theories, but you could flick through if you wanted to focus on a particular topic like money or team relations or errors. You could just go straight to those chapters, and we've got intros to each of the chapters.
Now, what about your co-writer? Tell us how that all came about and how you managed to wrangle quite a few well-known people to get involved.
Siobhan's an amazing person. She's one of the very first specialists in the UK in the area of ORSEL, which sounds awful, but it's not. It's animal welfare science, ethics and law. And she had been teaching that for a while, and in editing her column had so many great contacts. So she knew a lot of experts from around the world, and I knew a few down from our corner. So we put our heads together and put a few strings, asked for a few favours, and everyone we asked came to the party. It was quite amazing. We had a lot of people that wanted to get involved.
Fantastic. Now, I noticed, for instance, Dr Robert Johnson's provided a little bit of content. He's done some cartoons and bits and pieces. I didn't realise he was so creative and artistic.
He's actually an amazing person. Not only is he a vet, but he's studied a lot of languages, and he speaks many, many languages. Wow. He speaks Italian, he speaks different Asian languages. He's quite incredible. And he also is a cartoonist, and he was a professional cartoonist for some years. So I knew this, and he did agree, even though he was very busy as the AVA president, he agreed to submit a few cartoons to the book, which I think are fabulous. Now,
this is definitely not some text-heavy book, is it? Lots of images in there, cartoons. In fact, you took some of the photos in there. Tell us about some of your favourites.
Took lots of photos, and we used a lot of cartoons. And one of the reasons is that it's, one, we didn't want it to make it a text-heavy book. Yeah. The reason we had cartoons is because actually it turns out, even though we thought we'll have lots of photos, that illustrating an ethical dilemma with a photo is very difficult. We ended up with a lot of very hammy photos of us just going, oh, like that. And obviously we couldn't run those.
Sure.
So we resorted to cartoons to show more complex ideas, but some of the pictures relate to cases. So for example, we've got a case involving an animal with a fractured femur, and so we've got an x-ray of a fractured femur. We just wanted to make this really accessible to people working in clinics, nurses and vets. not just academics. It's really important to us that this is something people in practice can relate to. So the illustrations help, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, and we'll get to some of those cartoons shortly. Now, you posed quite a few dilemmas in there. What were some of the answers that maybe surprised you from your colleagues?
We didn't want this book to be just, what do Anne and Siobhan think is the right or wrong thing? I mean, because that's not really relevant to everyone. What's relevant is the reasoning process. And I think it's important that people understand different people come to different conclusions. They reason through ethical dilemmas differently, even using the same frameworks. And so we wanted to have as many examples as possible. We've got 34 scholars from around the world who've contributed that. But we've also provided commentary for each of those, and then further exercises in case people want to have their own thoughts without being influenced by those others. So that was really important to us, that there was a diversity of voices.
Okay. Now, in Chapter 2, Making Ethical Decisions, there's a quote, "The academic has the luxury of time when it comes to ethical decisions." And it really got me thinking, how often do vets have that time, the luxury of time?
We often don't. And sometimes the ethical dilemmas are definitely something that have kept me awake at night. And sometimes it's well after you've done the consult and decisions may have been made, but you haven't really had time to think about all of the potential options. And that's why I think it's good to practice reasoning through these things when you're not in the thick of it. Having time can make a real difference to the decisions that you make. What we're really hoping is to show that when you do have time to reason through these issues, sometimes the whole dilemma disappears. Sometimes it's a matter of just getting a bit more evidence or thinking about the problem from a different perspective, and then you can come to a resolution that's satisfactory to all or most parties. So we think that if people are able to practice ethical reasoning using some of these strategies, then they'll have a bit less moral distress.
Okay. Now, I'm going to pick some chapters at random, otherwise we've got 15 of them. We'll have a 15-part series over 4 months. But the decisions you have to make literally left me gobsmacked reading some of those things. One chapter that stood out talked about the quality of life. Tell me about that.
So quality of life is something that vets in practice get asked to make assessments about frequently. But we're often looking at an animal in the context of a consultation room, which is a foreign situation for that animal. They're often behaving very, very differently. It can be really hard to assess that quality of life. And there can also be sometimes a conflict between the interests of the owner and the interests of the animal. So that's something that the vet has to negotiate as well. There's also different strategies for measuring and assessing quality of life. And so we've talked about some of those and how they can be applied. But quality of life assessments often lead to life and death decisions. And there can be a lot of guilt around that and a lot of fear from vets. Are we making the right decision? Are we giving our client the right guidance? Are we letting our patients down? Are we letting the clients down? And this is one of the number one things that causes vets moral stress. So quality of life assessment is really important in life and death decision making. And life and death decision making is very high stakes. So it's good to equip vets to think about that in a systemic way.
Do you go home and think about those things at night sometimes?
All the time.
Make the right decision?
All the time. And when I'm in the shower, that's often the thing I think, what about this case? Did I do everything right? Is there something more I could have? Did I give the right amount of pain relief? Was I pushing my own perspective? I always think about those kinds of things. And I actually think that a good vet should, not to the point of self-flagellation, but to the point of trying to hone your decision making. Like, we're a bit like a piece of diagnostic equipment. We have all of our experience is helpful. We're sort of pre-programmed by our prior experience, but it's how we apply that. And if we can practice, we can apply it better and we can perform better. I think if you can hone your decision-making skills, you are more happy with the decisions that you make. And that's a good thing for everyone.
All right, here's the big one. Money.
Yeah.
Now, 2 cases, 2 clients. The case is a dog hit by car, sadly. Broken leg, approximately $3,000. Needs a plate, maybe $5,000, who knows. Client number 1, married couple, very successful, drive a BMW or a Porsche or whatever. And client number 2, 75-year-old lady, and the dog is her entire life. She really can't afford that kind of money. What do you say? What do you do? What are the options?
So this question raises a whole lot of issues. And one of them is is it really fair to treat different people exactly the same? What's your idea of equality? And
that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
Hard, yeah.
It's one that governments struggle with. It's one that people struggle with all the time. And it's something that we're faced with quite frequently as practitioners, and there's different ways to approach it. I don't want to give away the answer here, but certainly our contributors really worked through this one, and I know this scenario is going to be one that most vets in practice will be able to relate to, because we all deal with cases where you might have animals with exactly the same condition, but for some reason or other you can't treat them in exactly the same way. Yeah.
I don't have it open in front of me, but what was the preferred answer, I suppose, in there? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Sorry.
That's all right. So you better buy the book. This is a great little book, you know.
It's a fabulous book.
It's available online.
Because we had so many iterations.
Yeah.
So many different people had different answers to that particular scenario. Yeah. So the other thing is, this is not a book that people are going to buy that gives them advice about the right thing to do in X number of situations. Yeah. Nothing can do that.
It poses questions.
It does.
With the answers, even.
And it gives thought out answers so that you can see the reasoning, so that even if you disagree with the answer, you can understand where it comes from.
Aha! Plus there's more, much more in fact, that was revealed in VETtalk Online's chat with Anne. So if you found part 1 as riveting as we did, don't miss our second segment coming soon, which looks at 2 of the industry's most common ethical dilemmas: consent in emergency situations and our precious wildlife. To make sure you know when it's uploaded, just like our Facebook page, VETtalk Online.